The Denver Broncos choked away a prime opportunity to clinch a playoff berth against the Los Angeles Chargers, having two different 11-point leads that they were unable to hang on to. In this episode of Crushing It, I'm going to go over what went wrong for them and what they need to correct going into a Week 17 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. It helps get me out into the algorithm to more Broncos fans. We are up to 86 subscribers right now, and I want to try and hit 100 before this Bengals game, and I know you guys can help me do it. So let's try and get this video up to 10 likes. Let's get to 100 subscribers, and let's get into the video. So let's get into some numbers first. We'll start with this offense. Bo Nix had a solid game, 29-40, 263, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was kind of something he was getting harped on coming into this week. Looked like he was returning to September Bo. The Broncos rushing, it was good. I'm going to get into my gripes with it in a minute. Audric Estime was 9 for 48 for 5.3 a carry and a score. Bo Nix had 3 rushes for 25 yards. Javonte Williams, 4 for 24. It was an efficient day for him on just a few touches. Blake Watson also got 4 carries, and he went for 10 yards, while Marvin Mims had a carry that went for 3. Now we look at this at the receiving game here. Marvin Mims goes 3 for 62. Sutton goes 5 for 50. Javonte Williams had 7 catches for 29 yards, kind of playing that Samaje Perine role, it appears. You had Troy Franklin with 2 catches for 25 yards. Devon Vele, 2 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown. You had Lucas Kroll with 3 catches for 21 yards. Michael Burton, 3 catches, 19 yards, and a touchdown. Nate Atkins, 2 catches, 18 yards. Blake Watson, 1 for 13, and Adam Troutman, 1 for 5. The Broncos offense showed a lot of flashes there in that in that first half here. I mean, you know, coming right out of the gate, the run game was working for him really, really well until the wheels kind of fell off, and I'll get into what happened here in a second. Nix looked good within the offense. I felt like there was still a little more dink and dunk that I would have liked, but he was kind of under pressure quite often during the night. He got sacked twice, which lost 18 yards, and it was not his... I wouldn't, it's far from a bad performance, and it definitely feels like a little bit of a rebound game, but you would have liked to see him, you know, push it down the field a little more, especially in that second half when the Broncos were struggling to get things going. It just felt like they had a hard time finding anything over, you know, 10 yards kind of past the line of scrimmage with how that Chargers defense played in that second half. Only held the Broncos to 6 second half points. The receivers, I liked what was going on. Marvin Mims was amazing in the screen game, which kind of nullified the lack of punt returns there. There were some penalties that definitely held the Denver Broncos back, and we will get into those here in a moment, because that was another killer. And it really wasn't offensive penalties. There was one crucial special teams penalty that I will get into in a minute. Now, the running game is something I really want to focus on, because on the surface, it is a really good running back by committee performance here. You had a combined 21 carries for 110 yards, averaging 5.2 a carry. You ran for a touchdown, so that's a pretty good day. A lot of my issue is that even starting from the second quarter, it felt like the Broncos really, really, really got away from the running game. And that, I think, was a part of the reason they weren't able to fizzle things out. When they went on that first drive and only threw 2 passes, they ran so much time off of the clock just off of that, and they were able to really get things going on the ground. So when they started moving away from it, you know, really trying to get Nix into this play-action drop-back game, it really felt like a pendulum swing from run to pass, and then they could never quite push it back to consistently running the ball. And I think that was one of the big reasons that they lost, is because nearing the end of the game, it was really just kind of 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Overall, I liked what I saw from the receiving game, even still. Although Sutton, if I remember right, he might have had a crucial drop at some point in the game. I know Franklin had one that hit his hands. There are people that are mad, and I kind of certainly was at the time, about a missed pass interference call on Marvin Mims that he should have drew. Granted, it was a complete underthrow that if Nix just gets out a little earlier, it's a touchdown. And we're probably singing a whole different tune about either, at worst, a close overtime loss, or at best, Denver hangs on to this thing And I'm here talking about first postseason berth since 2015. Right now, Denver sits at around an 85% chance to get into the playoffs, although they have tough matchups coming up against Kansas City, and you've got Cincinnati next week on Saturday. Now we look at what the defense did, and the first half, phenomenal. Second half, not so good. And the real turning point of the game, I think, was at the end of half when Denver gave up that free kick. And that was off of a special teams penalty that set that up entirely. It was for a fair catch, fair kick, whatever the wording is, interference. And so that left Denver in the position to give up that free kick. First one since the 1970s, by the way, that was actually made and converted. Just a little a 57-yard kick that Cameron Dicker absolutely nailed. And so looking into what this defense did on the surface, numbers-wise, Brandon Jones had 10 tackles on the day with a pass defense QB hit. Cody Barton had 7 tackles. Locke had 6. And then you have a lot of guys here in the 4-tackle club. And Allen, Strnad, Surtain, and Chris Abrams. Drain in the 4-tackle club. Chris Abrams drain with an interception and a pass defense right there. Uwazurike had 3 tackles, as did McMillan. Jonah Ellis. Drew Sanders had a sack, as did Dondre Tillman. So some kind of backup guys for your Broncos stepping up right there. And then you had DJ Jones. Nick Bonitto was oddly quiet in this game. It looked like the Chargers might have had a really, really good game plan to shut him down, which really was effective. Bonitto was quiet all night. Malcolm Roach came in with 2 tackles, didn't do anything spectacular. John Franklin Myers didn't do anything spectacular. And then J.L. Skinner made a tackle out, and Jonathan Cooper had a pass defense. It was a nifty little play that Herbert was trying to sidearm kind of from inside of their 20-ish, I want to say. So it wasn't the worst effort by the Broncos defense, but there was a lot to be left desired. It looked like Justin Herbert, in every crucial facet or situation of the game, was able to find a receiver running wide open through the middle or somewhere adjacent, and the Broncos just could not get off of the field. I mean, we go look at the Chargers' third down conversions here. Yeah, you look at the Chargers' third down conversion rate here. They were 6 for 12. And if you are the Broncos defense, that is an unacceptable percentage. And a lot of that too was kind of from the first quarter, but even second half, the Chargers just could not be taken off of the field here. Justin Herbert was finding receivers at will at times, and as a defense, I mean, there were some crucial plays that they gave up. I specifically think of that long touchdown pass to Haskins on what was really just a little flip that no one could just get to the guy. You had, they had the Gus Edwards touchdown as well, which I want to say he might have ran for 2 if I were to go look at that. Yeah, Gus Edwards ran for 2. Broncos defense, the run defense was definitely still shaky, and I think teams are kind of realizing that is a part where the Broncos are a little bit vulnerable. Of course, Gus Edwards, he started out a little slow, but he finishes 14 to 68 for 4.9 a pop, 2 touchdowns. And the Chargers, as a team, finished 28 to 117, 4.2 a pop, 2 touchdowns, a la Gus Edwards. So what about this receiving game? Well, when I was talking about keys to victory, Ladd McConkey and shutting him down was really kind of the big thing that I was going off of here, and Denver couldn't do that effectively. He caught all 6 of his targets for 87 yards. He was moving the chains for Herbert when he needed him to. Joshua Palmer goes 3 for 41. He had a big 24-yard catch. Hassan Haskins, like I just said, with that 34-yard touchdown, really iced the game for the Chargers right there. Stone Smart had a couple of crucial catches for the Chargers. Really, the Broncos just could not hang on. They played really, really good in that first half, but come the second half, it was just not happening for the guys. And so, you really have to look at what's going on here. Is it a Riley Moss being gone thing? I thought Chris Abrams' drain looked well. I was perplexed by a couple of things. First off, Denver's lack of pass rush since the bye week has been incredibly concerning. And I don't think I'm the only guy that has noticed this, but it's really been Nick Bonitto making game-changing plays that has really kind of masked it. But at this moment in time, I mean, the Broncos have not been able to rush the passer well all of a sudden. And that was one of the things that they like kind of prided themselves on at, at a part during the season. And so when you're looking at stuff like that, I think that starts, I think it accelerates some of their issues a little bit. Pass coverage can't hold up for forever. But another thing that and maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into this, but it really feels like that Denver is playing a lot more zone than they were playing. It's like they don't entirely trust Chris Abrams-Drain yet in man, or maybe Damari Mathis. And it's been perplexing to me that they've been playing so much zone, because it feels like every time they play zone, they kind of get picked apart. This is a man-to-man team that is built on pressure, and when you're unable to get that pressure, and when you start resorting into zone coverages that, maybe aren't the most disguised, you're going to have a bad time. It really also didn't seem like Denver blitzed all that much, which is kind of their forte. That has kind of been their thing this entire season. They have been a blitz-heavy team, and it feels like the last little bit they've kind of gotten away from that, which has kind of translated here into this lack of pressure. Offensively, so really just to kind of wrap this all up in a bow here, talking on these issues, the Broncos' run game worked really, really well in that first half. Estime was rolling, and we have been harping to see more Estime for God knows how long. And we got him, and it looked good. The Broncos had a really, really good first half offensively. They were running the ball at will. Man, Nix was making plays with his legs. We saw some of that RPO bow that I know a lot of guys were a lot of fans were wanting to see, because it was kind of when we saw Nix at his best at times. And then in the second half, it almost felt like they didn't run the ball at all until they were trying to salt the game away. But by at that point, it's pretty predictable. And so when your pass game isn't able to develop at that point, then you're kind of screwed. And that's how you choke away leads. So what does Denver have to do against Cincinnati? They are going to have to play this similar style of time of possession, keep the Bengals offense off of the field. Now remember, Denver clinches with just one single win. All Denver has to do is win, and they're in one of these next two games. They can get some outside help with some losses by, I believe it is Miami and Cincinnati this week. But of course, you can't always rely on other teams to lose. Bengals play the Browns in Cleveland. So going into Cincinnati with how explosive their offense is, and with how historically bad the Cincinnati defense has been all year, you need to commit to the run game when it's working. Even from the second quarter, it felt like Sean Payton was really, really getting away from that run game. And when it's working, that's not something you really want to do. So just when things are working, you have to commit, because you do not want to get into a barn burner game with Mr. Burrow. Another thing too is defensively, you need to play into your strengths. This has been a man and a blitz team all season long, and so it feels like, just kind of given from the eye test, it feels like Denver is playing way more zone than they've played at all during this year. Over these last couple of games where defensively they've just been getting gashed. Return to your roots, do what was working at the first bit of the season, and it's just gonna have to be your best man on the Bengals' best guy here. Surtain is going to have to stick with Jamar Chase going into next week, and you're gonna need all the manpower you can get. We might see Riley Moss back, so he should be able to stick hip to hip with T. Higgins, and that'll leave Jaquan McMillan in the slot, and the Broncos should be back to full strength on the secondary front. Although I commend Chris Abrams-Drain for the job he's done the last 2 weeks. Chris Abrams-Drain was not the problem in the defense. And another thing too is Vance Joseph has to figure out a way to get this run defense settled in, man. They have been playing not great football lately, and you gave up, 117 on 4.2 yards a pop to against the Chargers. Not a good look. Not a good look, and that is how you lose games and how you don't clinch playoff berths, is if you can't stop the run, and Denver couldn't do it effectively in that second half. So I think going into Cincinnati, those are going to be the biggest things that they need to fix. Commit to the run when it's working. Figure out, how to get your guys a little more open, and maybe it's a separation thing on that front, or maybe the Chargers defense was just playing really, really well. Either way, Denver needs to find ways to move the ball on the ground to help Knicks, because that is when we saw that offense at its best last night, giving Knicks windows to throw to, giving him, that run game support that opens up the pass game. I know it's kind of cliche, but that is how things work. When a defense has to respect your running game, you are going to find passing lanes, and Denver got away from running the football. Another thing, too, Marvin Mims has been a revelation so far, man. I am loving his development, and I think you've got to really, really keep him in the game plan going forward at this point. I mean, he's having a really good back half of the season here, and hopefully he can spark something on special teams at that point. But with that being said, it's a little bit of a short stream, I know, but I am recording this, so I am going to go edit that down as well, and I'll have that up in just a little bit. So if you guys enjoyed, let me know how you feel in the comments down below. Will the Broncos clinch their first playoff berth against the Cincinnati Bengals? We'll have to see on Sunday, but let me know what you think. I will see you all in the next video, and with that being said, have a wonderful night. And I'll see you later. Keep crushing it.